About 225 miles north of San Francisco, there's a remote stretch of rocks, ridges, and redwoods called the Lost Coast. The southern half of the Lost Coast lies in Sinkyone Wilderness State Park, and that's where we're headed today. Our guide is Josh Ertl, a former Peace Corps volunteer who's now a state park ranger. He's driving us through the ruts and bumps of Usel Road on the park's eastern boundary. Ertl calls it Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. You can tell from the sound of things that it's not recommended for passenger cars, but the views are terrific.
You almost feel like you're on Hawaiian Islands. You have these really steep cliffs and ridges that are so verdant green, you just kind of forget where you are.
Soon we get to the old town site of Wheeler. Nobody lives here now, but Wheeler was once a company town, and the area all around it was heavily logged in the 1950s. Nature has taken back the land, but even so, you can feel some of the energy of those past lives.
Back then, you had a community of a dozen or so families. It was a tight-knit community. The only entertainment they had were each other, and so they would do big fish fries. They would have celebrations and parties on the beach, big gatherings. You see all these alders and this greenery. This was not here. This would have been all barren land. They would have had stacks of wood and trees and lumber all throughout here, and roads and houses. It's just a testament to nature's ability to regenerate and come back to something that looks untouched.
From Wheeler, you can walk north on the Lost Coast Trail, right into Schoolmarm Grove. I ask why the loggers spared these big old redwoods.
They recognized it being a resource for the community. It was the one that was spared so that they can all appreciate some of the beauty of it. As we hike higher and higher, we get a good view of the canopy, kind of the forest within the forest. There's some really interesting reiterating trunks where you get these elbow growths that are coming out of these large trunks of the redwoods and then developing essentially a whole new tree. So let's go take a look.
If you walked all 23 miles of the Lost Coast Trail in the state park, you'd get to explore 3 old-growth redwood groves. Starting in the north, you'd hit the J. Smeaton Chase Grove near Bear Harbor, then Schoolmarm Grove here at Wheeler, and finally Sally Bell Grove near Little Jackass Cove.
A lot of people would say, 23 miles is not a long time. That can be a little deceiving because this trail has approximately 12,000 feet vertical gain loss. So there's a lot of up and there's a lot of down. If you were to hike the trail, you're pretty much just dancing along the ridges and then dipping down to sea level where a lot of the trail camps are, so right next to the water.
If you're not an experienced backpacker, you probably shouldn't try the whole length of the Lost Coast Trail, 23 miles in Sinkyone Wilderness State Park, and 60 miles total.
I usually would recommend going into Needle Rock and then from there going to Bear Harbor or to Wheeler and taking a little bit smaller bite out of the experience.
Ertl also suggests taking hiking poles, a water purification system, a way to store food that won't attract bears, and a topographic map. And finally, don't bring a passenger car into the Sinkyone if it's been raining.
When visitors get stuck, I oftentimes joke with them that Sinkyone lets you go when it wants to let you go. You don't get to go when you want to go.
We hope you've enjoyed this visit to Sinkyone Wilderness State Park. For more information, come to the Visitor Center at Richardson Grove State Park or check out our website.